The thing I like the most about soccer is the freedom in the sport. A lot of other sports you have kind of set plays and a lot of time off here and there, and soccer is a free-flowing sport, and that's something that's kind of how I live my life too. I like to live it with a lot of freedom and a lot of just spontaneity.
I like to say I'm a fan of sport, and I'm a fan of the business of sport. And I think it's important that if you're going to be in the business of sport, you can't really be a fanatic about any sport, but you need to be a fan of all sports. When the opportunity, I noticed back in 2010 and during the World Cup, kind of the upwelling of support for soccer here in the States. For the national teams, and kind of how it was starting to develop. We just started getting ready for our HL franchise here in Oklahoma City, and I'd had a proposal on my desk about a potential USL franchise.
Obviously, it's been a lifelong passion and sport for me. But I think there's been there's a lot of demand at the youth level. You see a lot of the families are already involved. And then I think even inside the city, there's just pent-up demand for sport. It's a great sports town. People love it, and soccer is one of those, though, that once they experience it, and especially if they experience it in person, they're kind of hooked for life.
Seeing what the sport of soccer is doing kind of worldwide, and kind of the unifying nature of the sport across culturally as well. And so it's not. I think the sport is unifying across different cultures across the world, but also across cultures within its given market. It brings people together in support of an organization or a team, and that was what it was fairly evident about 2011-12. I really grasped what I felt would be good for Oklahoma City as a community as well. When things began to really take shape and roll, we knew that we were close to a franchise agreement, and that we were close to getting a facility nailed down. In conjunction, when it kind of happened all in a stair-step plan, we started talking about names. Well, we threw out a bunch of names out there, did a bunch of market research as to what we thought might work. What you do then is you have to go out and do a bunch of due diligence and try and do it under the radar without anybody catching on about trademarks, URLs, all these different things, names of other teams. Really find out these options that you want to look at, and I think it was like 20, and then go out and find out what the goods and bads of all of them. After we got the feedback from the public, and we took the top 5, and then went through more due diligence. Said, okay, we know what these are. Let's look at it more in depth. Let's go back through and do trademark checks. Let's go back through that whole process, and then let's get some feel for how the market's going to respond as to which name we're going to choose.
Ladies and gentlemen, your OKC Energy Storm, scored by number 21, Stephen Perry.
One of the concepts that came on early on was OKC United, but having DC United as an MLS team, we knew we'd never be able to make that work. We wanted a name. The overall premise with the name and the logo was it has to hold up to MLS. When you set it next to the other MLS teams and their logos and their names, it's got to hold up and it's got to be able to maintain itself. And that was the overriding principle of the names that we had. If it doesn't get close to holding up against those other names, once we kind of identified those, it just kind of parsed it down and naturally just kind of flowed down into energy, which we all liked anyway. We thought it was a good broad spectrum and tied into so many different things about Oklahoma City, not who we are as a people, our work ethic, and quote unquote energy that we bring to life and to our work. we've largely done everything we've done in Oklahoma City, mainly by our own will. We've just said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to build a new arena. We're going to build a new ballpark. We're going to renovate and renaissance our city all by ourselves.
Now we know we're just along the strategic path, and really there's 3 steps to get there. But the first and foremost one is you had to have a diehard fan base, a club that was up and running and had proven support for it. And so we expect that to continue to grow. The second piece of it is you've got to have an ownership group that's bought in. And obviously the Funk family, Tim McLaughlin, they're not only bought into just soccer, but bought into sports, bought into the city. And so those were really important components, and that was a great marriage. And then the last, and it's something we're looking into already, but what the MLS says, really the third leg in the stool is then you've got to have the stadium for it. So we're beginning to survey the community and see what their interests are and where that sits in the community, along with looking at the different sites and locations. And so we believe once we put all of those 3 things in, which is exactly what the MLS says that you have to have, it at least gives us a seat at the table at that point. And then we know we just have to continue to push and do our work on our side of the fence. But we believe, just like you've seen, usually the city achieves once it's ready and makes a decision that it wants to get somewhere, that the community tends to follow in behind it.
How high do you want to go? How high do you want to go?
I'd like to think I'm a little bit conservative on terms of what my expectations would be. And I was pleasantly surprised at the support that we saw that we see for the franchise, and that we saw when we initially rolled it out, and the response to the brand has been fantastic. The individual fan support and the supporters groups that are supporting us, the youth clubs and their support, I've been pleasantly surprised and very appreciative and very thankful for the support that we've gotten to this point.
It's big. In a lot of ways, it's a coup for professional sports in general. But I've been a soccer fan for the last 16 years, and you've always had to find a surrogate team to root for, whether it be in England or MLS or whatever league you really want to support. You always had to look elsewhere. And what this means is people like me have got the ability to now have that homegrown team that they can support and feel like they own a part of it. So it means a lot. It's a big thing for us. The Grid is, like I said, it's an independent supporters group. What we do is we gather people that either are soccer fans in general or are Energy fans by virtue of being soccer fans as well. We organize into, what you think of a soccer supporters group. We get rowdy on game days. We have events. We try and build our membership base up so that we can support Energy in the stadium, on game day. And in the long run, the Grid is also going to be a charity organization because we're completely nonprofit. Any money we make, either through T-shirt sales, scarf sales, anything like that, the money goes back into soccer. So what the organization is it's a supporters group first and foremost, but we also have eyes on growing soccer as a sport in the state.
The biggest Jimmy in the world, we got the biggest Jimmy. In the world, we got the biggest Jimmy. Good job, guys!
They've been amazing. It's important for the players to see that support too. When they're out there, it's warm or it's windy or it's freezing cold, but there's still people in the stands, and you want to give everything you have for those guys. They're paying money, they're taking time, they're 100% behind the team, so you want to pay them back with good performance.
How I got the job was basically through enthusiasm. The day they announced the team, one of my very good friends said, they announced a professional soccer team here in the city. And I said, well, that's awesome. Where do I sign up to try and get to be a part of that? And I met the right people, and I met the director of communications for him, and I said, what can I do? What do you need from me to grow this team to make it successful? And he said, well, is there a supporters group? And I said, no, but there can be. And so about 8 guys and I got together, and we were about the most diehard fans because we were there on day one, and we just said, let's do this. Let's make this our thing. And that's how the Grid started. And, we grew, we got more members, we finally settled on a name, we got a motto, but yeah, it was very organic. And I just got there because I was one of the guys the first day that was like, what can I do to make this work?
We knew it would come as most Oklahoma. Again, if the community bought into it, and once they experienced the sport, we knew that those types of things would come about, but they also come about organically. It's not something as an organization that you can just come in and say, here's what you're going to be, or here's what we want you to be. They have to figure some of that out on their own, and that's really been the neat piece of kind of the growing and watching process for them. Is they definitely had their like you said, kind of cult-like group there in the beginning, but it's been neat to watch them now start to interact with the rest of the fans too, because they are part of what helps drive the passion and part of what helps drive the environment that's there. It's part of what makes soccer soccer.
You know, we went through a little bit of a bad run, and we were still getting, you know, words of encouragement on social media, you know, throughout the city. We were still seeing people sport Energy FC, you know, shirts, scarves, jackets, whatever it is. And so going into our last game against New York Red Bulls, you know, the Thunder was playing. We hadn't gotten a home win yet. We hadn't put our, you know, best performances at home out yet. And we didn't really know what to expect going into it. You know, we were curious to see how many fans would show up, even though we still heard good things. We still didn't know for sure. And then walking out and seeing that it was still almost sold out, and the fans were behind us, and probably even louder than any game before. It helped our morale completely, and fortunately we got a win that day as well. And you could just feel a huge weight lifted off of our shoulders. And I think the biggest thing too for that was, I don't think anybody's mentioned, but we scored in the 93rd minute, and every single fan was still there. You know, a lot of fans could have left early because it was a 0-0 tie, maybe considered a boring game, and wanted to get out and beat traffic. But no, you look around afterwards, you see that all the fans were still there. I mean, it was so loud when we scored, and that meant the world to us as well too, because it really does show that, you know, they're in it for the long haul, not just, you know, supporting a team that's, you know, going to be, you know, winning every game. Even though that's what we want to be, they're here for us no matter what, and that's what makes us want to play more and prove to them how good we are too.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention please. Now entering the match for the Richmond Kickers. In the 65th minute is number 4, Luke Barricone. Leading the game is number 7.